melody. It's so easy, can't you see? Polka, polka, that's for me. Polka, polka, everyone come along. It's lots of fun.
Welcome back, Miguel Dorati here at the Tap and Shoot podcast. This is part 2 of our podcast with Montel Griffin, former boxing world champion. He was with us. We're also joined by Mike Davis, I should say, who's from the Chicago area and part of the United Combat League, and he's a promoter and a big aficionado of boxing. And he knows Montel, so we had a terrific podcast about a month ago where Mike and Montel talked through a lot of his amateur experiences, which is just chock full of great stories and great names and a lot of controversy, and you just get to see, how, when people say boxing's a dirty sport and stuff, how that plays out. It kind of depends on your perspective, obviously, in some cases, but there are times where, Montel had some tough situations pop up for him, and he actually needed a lawyer at one point, and then when he shows up at the Olympics, his future opponent is the poster boy, on the programs and stuff. So we'll put up a little link, and hopefully you guys can check out the first part of that podcast as well. Terrific stuff. But I'm going to let Mike take it away here with Montel. Mike, you there?
Yeah, no, I'm definitely. I appreciate you having me on again.
Thank you.
Now, Montel, we had talked about your amateur career in the last interview. Now, transitioning to being a pro, bring us through that process, like with management, getting fights. I know that you were based, you're obviously from the Chicagoland area. Your camp was based out of California, but when getting fights, you were kind of all over the place in your first 10 fights. Including a fight in Ireland, Nebraska, a high school in like a suburb of Illinois, Michigan. Tell us how you got your manager. How it came about, as well as its beginning direction.
Well, the pro game, now, to me, I guess because I was, kind of successful, I really, the difference to me was better. Fighting without that headgear because of the amateur rules. I lost my gold medal because they took 3 points because they said my head was low, even though I was fighting a guy 6'5". And in the pros, because of the rules was different, the style of fighting was different, and without that headgear and all that, it worked out better for me because it's funny because in boxing, I've seen so many amateur stars that make it in the pros. You wonder why. Like, I can't, it's still boxing, you understand, but it's a different level. It's a different type of fight from pro to amateur. It just so happened to favor me turning pro. So I was one of the fortunate ones that the pros were kind of easier to me. The amateur game is a sprint, and the pros is a marathon. So it's just, that's, what I'm saying, good comparison.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, because of the rule change, because of, the more round, I wasn't the type of guy who just come out and just throw, Mike, what they say about guys, the amateur style, just come out and just throws punches, gets hit and all that. My style was more laid back and slow, and, make a guy miss. And,
you don't take a lot of damage.
So, right. So that's why the program pretty much worked out for me. As far as my management, when I got home from Barcelona, I got a phone call from Lou Duva and Shelly Finkel. They took me out to Houston. I was going to be with their camp. I was excited because of, Pernell Whitaker and Holyfield was in the gym when I got there. And, just because they were, at the time they had the hottest fighters. They had the hottest team. Holyfield, Pernell, Meredith Taylor, and all those guys. But the crazy thing about it, like I said, losing in the gold medal, losing in the Olympics in the quarterfinals to the eventual gold medal winner, people who saw the fight know what happened. But since I didn't get to see it, I remember Shelly Finkel, I told him, of course, De La Hoya got the $1 million signing bonus. I was trying to get, I think I was asking for $100,000. And Shelly Finkel was like, well, you won that fight, but you didn't get the decision, so I don't think you deserve $100,000. So it was kind of funny because he was with me when I lost the fight. And he was, consoling me, saying, oh, everything will be okay and everything. But it wasn't no
tampons for you. Right, yeah.
Right. Things totally changed when I got back, boy.
Montel, I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you don't want to answer, it's cool. But would you tell us what you made for your first fight?
I'm trying to remember. I think it was 2,500. I think I fought in Denver on Bernard Hopkins undercard, and I think I made 2,500.
Okay, so let's just say that if you had won the gold medal, that would have been a lot higher too, obviously.
Oh yeah. Well, no, I mean, I think Ray Leonard made 60,000, 75,000 his first, pro fight with that gold medal, and this was in '76. So of course, it changes everything. So I know guys who made $400. So it's just
Right.
Right. You just want to be in the right situation. Because I was Olympian, I got a little more interest, more fanfare, and I made a little bit more money. But I didn't make the big money because, I didn't have that gold medal that I was supposed to have.
Okay.
All right, now, right out of the bat, if you look at, Montel's first 10 fights, he's got a ton of stoppages in there. And even some of the fights were, like 6-rounders. The overwhelming majority are TKO stoppages. Now, at 15-0, and I hope I'm not skipping too far ahead, it doesn't seem like your management had your best interest at stake when I threw you in there with James Toney.
Well, you know what? That's what my friend to this day, a guy who I trained, said I had the worst manager in history by throwing me in there with James Toney. This what happened. Like I was telling you about the Duva, I went to Duva's camp. When I left Duva's camp, I wasn't happy with their offer. I got a phone call from Jackie Callan. He said James Toney was interested in managing me. They was going to co-manage me, come up to Ann Arbor. What was it, Ann Arbor? No, she had the gym in Galaxy Gym in Detroit. So I went up there, stayed with James.
She's one of the managers.
You said what?
Yeah, I apologize. I didn't mean to interrupt. She's one of those managers I know very little about that I think I will have a future interest in reading more about her. James Toney manager.
I think she did a hell of a job. I thought I didn't have no problem.
Male-dominated sport. Yeah. Go ahead.
You said what?
I said in a male-dominated sport, you see, a woman really insert herself quite well, and it was very impressive.
Yeah, I think she did a hell of a job. I didn't have no problem. I mean, okay, you get offered some guys that you just turn down right off the bat. Like, no, I'm not interested. But like with the Lou the Jackie Callan, of course, I was excited about getting a chance to go out there. I saw what she did with James. I saw what the Dudes did with their fighter, so. I was willing to go out there and listen to what they put on the table. And James Toney was in camp training. He was the super middleweight champion of the world. I forgot the guy's name. He was a white guy who he was fighting. I can't remember his name, but he was in the gym training, getting ready for him. So we come to the gym, and we had a conversation. They talked about, like I said, she said her deal was. So she wanted, to James to look positive. So they was gonna co-manage me, and we had our talk and everything. And then the next day we went to the gym, and my test came. They was like, "You gonna spar James?" And I'm like, "Oh, okay." You know what I'm saying? He was my favorite fighter. He was a legend to me. I stayed at his house. It blew my mind, and we sparred. I was an amateur. He was the two-time world champion. We sparred. And he couldn't hit me. You know what I'm saying? And I felt real good. I'm like, the day I sparred James Toney was the day I knew I was going to be successful as a pro. I said, if I could do, that's the day I knew. The funny thing about it, I sparred James Toney. I sparred Booker T. Word. Remember him? He knocked out Anthony Hembert. And I sparred Dennis Andre, the former light heavyweight champion of the world. And I held my own with all three of them. But I actually outboxed, both of them. But, me and James, it was pretty much an even matchup. And that day I knew I was going to be successful as a pro. And day, I knew I could make it. I knew I was good enough. And like I said, I was still at amateur. I just, came home from Barcelona, and we went in the room to talk about numbers, and we didn't agree on numbers. And it seemed like to me that the whole gym was just based on James Toney. And I just I got a feeling like, well, they didn't come with the right numbers I wanted to hear. I said, and it seemed like to me, it seemed like I'd be on the back burner for a while because James is their top guy. And I told him thanks for no thanks, and I went back home. So that was in 92. So you got to think 3 years later, I turned pro in 93. 2 years later, I have 14. I fought in the Forum tournament, and so I knew my skill level was good enough, and I fought a guy named Ray. The hardest puncher I ever been in the ring with in my life. He hit me harder than I ever been. I sparred heavyweights that didn't hit as hard as Ray Lathan. And I had him out. He got saved by the bell. I got a little overconfident, and he ended up dropping me. First time I've been knocked down. And when I got up and finished him off, and won the fight, I won the Budweiser tournament at the Forum. I said, okay. I said, I know I got the skill level to beat anybody. And I said, I know I got the chin to take anybody punching. Because if Ray Lathan, Dale Torrance told me, we was in the dressing room after the fight. Dale Torrance told me, if you wouldn't have got up, I wouldn't have been mad. He said, that man hit you so hard that if you wouldn't have got up, I wouldn't even been mad at you. And I said, well, I got to get up. I was more embarrassed than hurt at the time. Of course, it was my first knockdown, so I was more embarrassed, and my girlfriend was there, and, that's all I'm thinking about. But after that, I get a phone call. Yeah, I was more worried about my girlfriend didn't get knocked down, and I was just being embarrassed.
Hey, you got your hand raised. That's all that matters, right?
Right. I won a major fight. I was 14-0. I just beat what's the kid name? He fought for the world title. I forgot the guy who I fought before Ray Lathan. I forgot his name.
David Vettel.
David Vettel had fought for the world title twice. I beat Ray Lathan, one of the hardest punchers, one of the best amateurs in boxing. I beat him, and I'm ready for anybody. So I get a phone call from John Kayward. I end up signing with a lawyer in Chicago, John Kayward. But I told him, and I don't have no disrespect, but looking at John Collins and all the guys that come up from Chicago, all they did was they fought in Chicago 30 fights, and then they first big fight they would lose. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. I'm not going to just base my career out of Chicago. I'm going to fight everywhere, everybody all over the world. And John Kayward, I promise you just won't be a Chicago fighter. We're going to fight everywhere. They promised me that, and they held on to their word. So I get a phone call. I'm sitting in the house one day. John Kayward said, do you think you could beat James Toney? I said, yeah, I could. I know I could beat James Toney. And he said, well, HBO is interested. And you fighting James Toney. Said, I think they said they give you $60,000 or whatever to fight. I'm like, I ain't fighting for $60,000. I said, give me $100,000, I'll fight him. He said, all right, I'll call you back. 10 minutes later, he called me back. HBO said, yeah, okay, it's on. And that's how I fought James Toney. At the time, Phil Torrance and Eddie Futch were saying, we don't need this fight, and this and all that. And John Kayward put me over to the side and said, man, look, you tell me, how do you feel about this fight? Do you think you can win this fight? Do you feel comfortable with this fight? I said, yeah. And that's how we end up, standing for the fight. Which, like you say, some people would say I was rushed and whatever. Okay, the funny thing about it, me and De La Hoya fought on the same undercard. It was our first big fight of our career. I had 14 fights. I think De La Hoya had 16 fights. And he fought the Puerto Rican kid for the title. And I can't remember his name. John Molina, I think. Is it John Molina? Anyway, we was the two Olympians that had the best career at that time. The fastest starters. We fought on the same card, and we both earlier, and Oscar's career shot off. He became a superstar, and mine just stayed in the same. I didn't get no respect for beating James Toney. My career just stayed at the same level.
I got a ton of questions about that fight. Like when you watch that fight, Miguel, it's literally George Foreman cheerleading James Toney, and James Toney, first ballot Hall of Famer. I mean, that guy is a bad man. I mean, he was just off his title loss, I believe. Am I correct? Can I say that? I think you were the first fight after he lost his. He lost.
Right. I was a certain fighter. I think I was the Roy. Right.
Right, and
I was the first fight with
it appeared. I think he beat Deron Williams. Yeah, no, you're right. No, he was right after Roy Jones. He beat Charles Williams, and then he lost to Roy, and then a unanimous decision that he lost to you by majority decision. When you listen to the color commentators on it, it's unbelievable how biased they were, particularly George Foreman. It was almost as if George Foreman was watching his best friend get whooped. Some of the things that were coming out of his mouth were incredibly disrespectful and out of character for him. I mean, he's generally a very well-spoken person, even-keeled. I have no idea why he took that stance against you. Was it your fighting style, or was it something that may have happened prior to that between the two of you?
He just was a guy who worked for HBO, and he took a liking to James Toney, and James Toney was his man. I mean, that's basically what it was. George Foreman said on national TV that I didn't win one round in that fight. And the funny part about it, like I said, I'm 25 years old, 14 fights. I go in the fighters' interview room for HBO. I'm talking to Larry Merchant, Jim Lampley, and George Foreman. So it's like I feel like a kid in a candy store. I see Big George Foreman,
right,
a guy who I watched, as a kid, and get a chance to meet him and talk to him. And it was a part in the fight. It was like the second or third round. I caught eyes with George Foreman. He looked at me and smiled and gave me like the thumbs up. And then when I watched the tape of the fight, that was around the same time when he was dogging me out. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, this man looked at me, smiled, and gave me the thumbs up, and was dogging me out at the same time. I just couldn't believe it. It hurt my feelings so bad when I heard the tape of that fight.
It infuriated me watching it live. I was a fan of this for the Olympics. The Olympic days, I was aware of the controversy, how you had lost. And then, I would see De La Hoya kind of being championed around, as obviously the golden boy. And, and Robert Middleman as his manager, and, the controversy that ensued with that. And I'm like, well, all right, we got this gold medal winner. Everyone's, kind of clamoring around him, and they're championing him. And then we got a guy that gets screwed out of a gold medal that appears to be thrown in against a wolf, beats the wolf, and in doing that, rather than saying, whoa, we have something special here, it's like there's a lot of negative comments in regards to it, almost defeating any way of a casual fan to kind of jump on, a new bandwagon.
It was crazy.
Did you ever address this issue with Foreman?
The funny part about it, okay, everything that happened after the first fight, okay, it happened. I watched the tape. I'm hurt. I mean, I'm brokenhearted. I tell everybody that if any superstar, any legend, idol, or whatever, they shouldn't say nothing negative, because they shouldn't be commentators. They shouldn't be, because so many people look up to these people. Like a Michael Jordan, George Foreman, Muhammad Ali, Tom Brady. I'm just top dogs like that. They should never comment on nobody because everybody love them, and they pretty much gonna hurt people's feelings on how they feel because people look up to them so much, and that's how I scorecard. And I'm in the dressing room. I'm taking a shower, and my friends are screaming like, Montel, come here. I'm like, what's the problem? I get out of the shower. I turn around and look at George Foreman. George Foreman came in my dressing room. He said, you know what? He said, you beat my man twice. I don't have nothing negative to say about you again. He gave me a hug, and that cleaned up everything. After that, I felt that was real, very big of him, and that was real respect for what he did.
Wow. That's wild. All right, then you go on another pair. You fought You fought in the United Kingdom 3 times. You fought all over, man. Like, you fought in China, you fought in Ireland, you fought in the United Kingdom a handful of times. What was your favorite place to visit?
Let me see. Well, after the second J, let me see. What was the first? I think after the second J Tony fight, I signed with Panics Promotions. The same guy who promoted Lennox Lewis, who was based in London. So I fought in London 3 times. I went out there and visited 2 or 3 times. So I spent more time in London than any other country. So that was pretty cool. I just had a hell, some good things happened in my life. Me and Rick Bo had the same trainer. Me and Lennox Lewis had the same promoter. So I spent so much time with them. That was pretty cool.
Now, when in your career did you realize that you needed different management? What prompted it?
See, I think me and Kay were split up. I think, and we split up when I took away. After which fight, I can't remember.
What prompted the split?
I just wasn't happy with decisions and the fights I was getting. I was fighting in people's backyards, keep getting robbed, keep getting taken advantage of. I went to Germany, fought Mikashevsky, felt I got cheated by American referee Joe Cortez, stopped the fight for no reason. I go to Miami to fight. I fought Derek Harmon. I trained the whole training camp, and a week before the fight, they switched to Eric Harding. I ain't know nothing about him. I took that fight, won, and got robbed. So I called myself just retired. I was just tired of the BS. I was tired of getting BS my whole career. So I called myself retired. I took some time off. I came back. I stopped back fighting. I just tried to get out the contract with Caddy Work because I wasn't happy with what was going on. And I ended up getting a lawyer that won me. My speech from him, and then I ended up signing with Al Heyman, and he pretty much did the same thing. He got me a fight with Rico Hoy in his backyard. I won on national TV on Showtime, and I got robbed. Got me a fight with Julio Gonzalez on Cinco de Mayo in Palm Springs, knowing I wasn't gonna get, a fair deal, and I was just so tired of boxing. I was just so tired of the business of boxing. I felt I'd never been treated with no respect. I never got no respect for anything I did, and I was just always the guy who was on the short end of the stick.
Is there any solid advice that you wish you would have taken up until that point?
My main thing, my number one thing in my life was I didn't have my father. I felt that's the biggest thing in my career. Every decision I made on my own. Me and my mother really didn't see eye to eye. She didn't want me boxing. My father had passed away, and I was on my own. Everything I did, I pretty much did by myself. I wish. I look at Floyd Mayweather, Chris Bird, Shane Mosley, all these guys who had their fathers and their lives, and I just know that my career and my life, would have been a lot different. As far as the management, you gotta get. You're always taking a chance with whatever you do. You just hopefully you pick the right person and they put you in the right situation. I mean, there's no manager, there's no promoter out there that's guaranteed that he's gonna work and make everything work for you. The whole thing is a business. If you making somebody money, they gonna make sure they take care of you. That's how I go. And I I never was that hot guy, like you said, that household name. I never was looked upon like that. And I just think, I just got, some bad deals.
Yeah, no, it happens, especially in the sport of boxing. It's unforgiving. Now, out of all the referees you worked with, who was your favorite?
Oh, Mills Lane. Mills Lane came and just showed me so much love and respect, and he was just my man. I mean, of course, I trained at Richard Steele's gym in Vegas, so Richard Steele, we had a different type of relationship. I think he only worked like one of my fights, but he was a good guy. He was more of a friend. But as far as a referee in the business, Mills Lane, I fought in Idaho, I think, right before Roy Jones. And Mills Lane gave me the biggest, utmost respect ever. He said, man, everybody keep talking about Roy Jones. You know what I'm saying? He said, but I feel you on the same level as him. And I told him, thank you, sir. I shook his hand, you know what I'm saying? He said, I can't wait to see y'all fight. And I thought that was one of the greatest, some of the greatest respect I had ever shown.
Now, what about Joe Cortez? Is he the referee that you were mentioning that you felt slighted by?
Yeah, I know. Joe Cortez, I don't care what nobody says. Joe Cortez is a dirtbag. He taking money. He's a dirty referee. And I don't think too many people don't like dirt. Joe, and don't respect him.
You're not the first person to say that.
Yeah, Joe Cortez. Yeah, he's not a good guy.
Yeah, I've heard this from several people actually. They're saying that that he has been less than clean in several instances in many people's bouts. Now, if you had to pick a fight to highlight your career, what would you? Just people would remember you by, what would it be?
You said to highlight it.
If you had to pick one fight, if one person would introduce, if you would introduce yourself in your career to one person through one fight, what would it be?
Like I said, I guess the Ray Lathan fight was a huge fight for me. I mean, everywhere I went, I was talking to people. When I got to Vegas to camp, there was a lot of good fighters in town. And, I didn't know about Ray Lathan because I wasn't fighting, but everybody knew about Ray Lathan. And every person I asked, I'm like, what you think? You think I can beat him? They said, yeah, if you don't get knocked out. That was everybody. They said, yeah, if he hit you, they said, you probably could beat him unless he hit you. And that's what everybody said. Everywhere I went, they're like, man, this kid Ray Lathan is no joke. If he hits you, he gonna knock you out. And I said, okay, we gonna see. You know what I'm saying? So I think that was a fight that people said, okay, yeah, this kid's the real deal. And after knocking him down and pretty much winning hands down, I think that was a fight that people took me as a serious contender.
That's good. Miguel, you got anything?
Well, I'd like to hear the whole up and down, because as in addition to Montel's stories about some problems with management and how you kind of there's a lot of bad luck that goes in there too, and he finally faced Roy Jones, and we haven't heard some of those stories. He's got those fights, which I know that whole disqualification and the circumstances around that has to feel like more of the same, Montel, like a shot at it and then just bad luck hits. Why don't you give us your perspective on that?
Well, we had fought in Atlantic City. I was ready for Roy. I thought I had just beat James the second time. My confidence was up, my experience level. I had 26 fights, and I just felt I wasn't worried about Roy. So I felt that I could match speeds with him. I could match skill level with him, and I won the fight very, very confident. As the fight was going on, the one thing about Roy that just blew my mind was the speed. I couldn't believe how fast he was. Like I said, I've been in the ring Mayweather, Roy Jones, Chris Bird, James Toney, some of the slickest, best fighters in the world. And Roy's speed, his hand speed, is second to none, unmatched by nobody. So just being and getting in the ring with him, trying to match speed, and we fought for 9 rounds. And even though he got credit for the knockdown, that should have been, that wasn't a knockdown. I was in the corner, he threw a shot, I was off balance, I fell. Well, I guess he scraped, he scraped my shoulder with a right hand or whatever, left hook, I can't remember, and they called it a knockdown. And, when they finished counting, most fighters know when they got a guy hurt. What they do, they jump on him. When they finished with my 8 count, Roy didn't even come out fast enough. He knew I wasn't hurt. He knew it wasn't a knockdown. But that kind of changed the fight. It made me, had to pick it up a little bit more because I had to make up, for them 2 points for, getting knocked down. So I fought the fight. Everything was going good. I had caught him with a good shot in the 8th round. He was laying on my shoulder. And I came, like old school, I hit him with my, old school shoulder move. I bumped him off my shoulder. I missed a left hook, but I caught him with his right hand. And I think his eye got cut or got real swollen or something. And everybody just was excited about it. In the 9th round, he threw a right hand. And instead of me picking it off with my right hand, I tried to roll with it. And it hit me kind of like in the back of the head. And I was like, because it wasn't even a hard shot. I just, I got a little dizzy, and I'm like, what the hell is wrong? I can't understand it. I just wasn't even a hard shot. But, I guess me getting hit in the back of the head, it kind of shook me up. So, I'm telling myself, I said, Montel, you got to be winning this fight. I said, we got 3 rounds to go. I said, look, just take a knee, and we got to win these last 3 rounds. So I thought I was winning the fight. And, I took a knee. So, as I'm looking up to catch the referee's count, he walks up to me and hit me. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? So I looked at the referee, like, man, you was going to let him hit me? And he sat there and loaded up and caught me with a little hook. That was so hard. I just thank God that I wasn't knocked unconscious and that I'm safe, to talk to you guys right now. So it was a devastating punch. He loaded up and everything. And the crazy part about that punch and that fight was people got mad at me because Roy Jones hit me on my knee. And I to this day, I can't understand that. People said I was faking.
Did he ever address that with you, why he did that? Or what made him lose?
After the fight, he told me, he said, look, man, I was wrong. I'm sorry. He told me that face to face as a man. On TV, I was faking, I'm this, I'm that, and I just lost respect. I'm like, that's crazy. I'm like, so you gonna tell me one thing, but be on TV and say a whole other thing. He's like, well, I know he'll never give me a rematch and this and all that. And I told him after the fight, I said, look, man, don't even worry, let's do it again. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, business and just things not going your way. Panos Promotion was my promoter. To this day, I think he worked, with HBO against me, and it is what it is. I think Roy got $3 million I heard for that first fight, so I said, okay, I'll fight Louis Vance. I want $3 million. We went back and forth, and they said, well, it's not this much on the table and everything. Whatever. I wouldn't even be surprised if Panos cheated me out of some money because he ended up getting sued by Lennox Lewis. Lennox Lewis pulled me up to the side one day and said, man, you better watch yourself because Panos is robbing me blind, so you need to watch out for yourself. And I think he won like a $7 million lawsuit against Panos. So I know for a fact that I got cheated out of money. And, like I said, if it's a bad thing that can happen to a boxer, everything happens to me. You know what I'm saying? If it's one bad thing that can happen, it all happened to me. From promotion.
All right, so Eddie Futch trained you for the first Roy Jones fight.
Right.
And I think, from what I believe, is I'm trying to recall, watching the pre-fight hype and stuff. Essentially, Eddie was there to kind of try to help you exploit Jones's lack of boxing prowess. Just like you said, he relied on his speed. And how was Eddie Futch in that fight?
like to take off, and maybe rest or whatever. He's like, we want to fight, but he don't want to make him fight, but he don't want to fight, which we did that. We went forward. We backed speed for speed with him, and we counted shots. A lot of times, fighters with speed, those punches, they throw those fast punches, and then they stand there because of the speed, thinking nobody they'll never get caught. So our thing was working with Dale Torrance on the pass. He would throw like 20 or 30 punches at me, and I just pick him off, and then I counter at the end, and that's what we did to Roy, and it worked the whole night.
I know you were up on the scorecards at that point as well.
Well, I was because of the knockdown, Roy was up 2 points on one scorecard, 1 point on one scorecard, and I was up 1 point on one scorecard. So if he wasn't credited with the knockdown, I'd have been winning the fight. But a lot of people thought, everybody I talked to felt, man, you was winning that fight. And, I thought I was winning the fight. And, I never wanted to win no fight on no disqualification. But, like I said, I didn't tell Roy Jones to hit me. You know what I'm saying? I'm not happy about that. And I remember after the fight, leaving, me and my wife was in the limo. And I said, man, I can't believe it. Like, man, I did not want this to end this way. And she said, man, look, don't worry about it, man. And you don't have ain't nothing you can do about it. You don't have, you know what I'm saying?
Now, let me see if I can get some details filled in here too. So Jones takes it. He's a world champion. This is a world championship fight, right?
Right.
Okay. So the championship is now in your hands, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, that's not the way you want to win it. But the fact is you're world champion. Did he have a rematch clause that you had to rematch him, or because if I was your manager, and I'm not, but he should have been begging you for a rematch. Why would we want, why would we want to be going to him and asking him to give us a rematch? I know he was a big name and stuff, but he should have been coming to hunt for you, and I would have gotten you back in the ring in a defense against somebody else, almost right away if possible. Move on and let him chase you. Give us your thoughts on that and how it played out that you got into the second fight.
Well, that's what you can't bring back the past. But that's one thing that bothers me so much to this day, because Eddie Fuchs actually had put together a deal for me to fight Steve Collins in Ireland, which tough guy, but he was made for my style. Would have been much easier, and for the same amount of money. And that's when you know the business part of it. That sometimes that's when you think to yourself, this guy don't have my best interest at heart. Eddie Fuchs was like, man, you don't have to fight this rematch. So let's fight this cat. And I was like, I'm the fighter, so I'm gonna do whatever my team say do, because I'm the fighter. And caddy work and Panos never really, really stood up for me. I don't think so. I don't, what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like you say, I could have fought a couple of fights and made some extra money and everything, and just made it a bigger fight with Roy. But,
the thing about a promoter, and I'm sorry to interrupt, Montel, but to me the thing about a promoter is if he works for you, then the idea is to promote you. You just got a world championship handed to you. I can work with that. You know what I mean? It's like, how could they waste an opportunity for everybody, and especially for you, but even for themselves? I mean, just if they grabbed a little bit of money on the side there, if you play it straight and take the opportunity given you, the money comes in for everybody. You see it in other people.
The 2 or 3 fights.
And well promoted fights, world champion, the guy that beat Roy Jones. Roy Jones can scream for a year and a half for a rematch before we give it to him, and you're on TV every couple of months. I just don't know why somebody, I do know why, because boxing is a business and it goes like that, but it really is a shame, Montel, and I apologize to bring it up because.
Of course. It is what it is. You absolutely correct, and that's something else,
So here we got about 45 minutes in here. Let's go through the last bit of the Roy Jones fight, the second fight, so Montel can wrap up the story and then close out with retirement and stuff and what's going on now. So Montel, now you're the world champion, you're in a situation where your management maybe and the situation's going to work out where you got to rematch Roy. What led up to that? If you can give us some details.
What happened was because the fight ended in disqualification. Roy Jones is an HBO fighter. Roy Jones was the money cow.
Right.
And he's a WC champion. The WC told me that I had to fight him in a rematch for a rematch.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? They the WC, which, like I said, man, of course, I wish I had the right team and the right people behind me. We could have gave that title up and walked on. If Roy talked me to me, I didn't need him.
Mm-hmm.
So we could have gave the title up and walked away.
And it's crazy because it's like here you are and you've described your career to us. You had the early loss of your dad in life that you said really affected, because a lot of fighters do rely on their family for the final, decision. Your dad was from boxing, so he knew his stuff, and you lacked that. So you're kind of in this business out there, without a lot of direction and stuff. You got this great opportunity here, and that now thrown at you, you got every time you say WBC and every time you say HBO in that situation, you're talking about a lawyer. You know what I mean? It's like all suits and lawyers and stuff like that. And you're on your own. And look who's in charge of boxing nowadays too. It's still HBO there. It's still WBC. So it's some crazy, almost. I don't want to use the word mafia, but I do want to use the word mafia because you go back 50 years. That's who ruled boxing, and it's the same thing now. It would just seem that way.
Yeah, I mean it's a crazy situation, but what can you do about it?
You're a great example, dude. And I say this with all respect because here you are after your career. You've been talking about this stuff. Yeah, you have reasons to be bitter and stuff, but you're still, you got your stuff about you. You still got boxing ends in tragedies for a lot of guys, and you've at least managed to keep yourself well above that. So you deserve even more credit for everything you've been through, man. If you could let
Miguel, I know Montel personally, and I will tell you this: like the surprising thing about Montel to me is, at 21, 22, we decided to go out to California to box again. I know Montel, is from the city of Chicago. But I'll tell you another thing about him. I guarantee he has not had many street fights. He's not confrontational. He's not super aggressive. I guarantee he's fought before, but he's not one of those guys that's looking for fights. He just handles his business when it's called upon. So for him just to kind of say, well, I'm out of shape, I'm over 200 and some odd pounds, I'm going to move out to California to be a boxer, even though I haven't touched the gloves since I was a kid, like, to me, that's shocking.
Yeah, I mean, it speaks of raw, natural talent. And when he says, I remember vividly because I really consider it an amazing experience of his. Is he said he doesn't even remember learning to box because he learned so young from his father and stuff. And when he picked it up, it was like an instinct that he already knew what he was doing. And I think that's amazing because what you're talking about is a real unique individual in those parts of circumstances that you think any promoter would have been able to work with, and instead, something always seemed to, or someone always seemed to have another interest, and it's kind of the thing that needs to be removed from, it's what makes boxing kind of not a sport, because all things are not equal. Now, even nowadays, I complain about, Klitschko and stuff. It's like, Klitschko doesn't fight unless everything is perfect for him. His lawyers are all happy and his pec is fine and blah, blah, blah. And, not everybody has that luxury. And it just, Montel's a guy who never had that luxury, and he probably had the talent to have been back that way. That's just an observation. Montel, thank you so much for your time. But let me ask you. Go ahead. We were leading into the second Roy Jones fight, and take us through what happened through there, and then we can close out with whatever you want.
Well, okay, second Roy Jones fight, like I said, I got a manager, I got a promoter, and I'm the champ. Supposedly, I'm supposed to be the champ. So I didn't get the money that I asked for. We fought the fight, and Eddie Fuss. The one thing that bothered me to this day, I didn't understand. Eddie Fuss, probably the greatest trainer of all time. Arguably, we can argue this all day, but Eddie Fuss, because at the time, Eddie Fuss had Riddick Bowe, Wayne McCullough, Mike McCallum, and then it was me. So, they was the big guys making more money than me. And Todd came on the scene. So, Eddie Fuss spent a lot of time with them, which I don't have a problem with that. But because I spent more time with Dale Torrance. Eddie Fuss came to the gym and worked with me and everything, but I always, because of those other guys, I was more with Dale. So me and Dale had a better relationship. Me and Dale had a better rapport in the gym. So over time, I started making money, and then Eddie Fuss wanted a raise. He wanted to make more money, and I'm like, Mr. Fuss, you really not even in the gym with me. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, I appreciate everything you do and everything, and Mr. Fuss wanted a raise, and Caluward didn't. He asked me, "What do you feel? Do you think Eddie Fuss deserves more money?" And I said, "No, not really." I said, "Because Dale works for me." And they end up getting into it. Eddie Fuss went his separate way. So that was the first big thing in my camp. Eddie Fuss, Eddie Fuss went out our several rounds leading up into the second fight. So that was huge. And, like I said, I had all confidence in Dale Torrance. That was my main man. So I said, we just got to move forward. And, like I said, the WC, they ordered, a rematch. We got prepared for it. So 5 months later, I kept my way down. I was in the gym and everything. So, I was ready. I trained 8 weeks for the first fight. So I said, okay. I got a little tired in the 9th round when I got caught with a shot. I said, okay, so we're gonna train 10 weeks this time. But I wanted to be a little bit better this fight. I know I needed it to, to finish, the fight. So I went to camp 2 weeks earlier without my trainer Eddie Fuss, and as everything in camp, it was one of the best camps I ever had. I think one thing I didn't feel comfortable about, HBO had came to take me training, and I always thought to myself, I wonder, are they going back to Roy and saying, man, this kid is ready? You know what I'm saying? This kid was on a whole nother level. That's the first thing I could think about. Like, man, why is HBO here, so early? So, I go in camp. I had one of the best camps ever. This is the first, and I wasn't a huge, I got 30 knockouts, but of course, Mike, you know how boxing is for promotion. But some of those fights, I'm not going to, you know how it is, Mike. Some of those fights, they set opponents up, you know what I'm saying? They give you opponents that you're supposed to. So, I had 30 knockouts. I knew I wasn't a knockout.
Look at De La Hoya's career. De La Hoya's career was looking
right. Right. So, that's part of the game. You know what I'm saying? They put you in there with the right guy that make you look good. So, you know what I'm saying? Like I said, I had the 30 knockouts, but I knew I wasn't a knockout puncher. But this camp right here, though, I knocked out all my sparring partners. Either, knocked them down, dropped them, cut them. Did everything I did, this was just working so perfect.
So, now, get into the result of the second fight. You're talking about the camp leading up to Roy Jones and how HBO was taping you.
I had the best camp of my career. I was knocking guys out. I was dropping them. I was hurting them. I cut this guy open. I felt bad because he had a fight in like a week or two, and I split his. I think I bust his lip. I hit him with an uppercut and ripped his lip in half. It was just a camp. I was just ready. I'm like, I'm ready for this. You know what I'm saying? I felt I was just on a whole another level from the first fight. So we get to security say, okay, we gonna come get you and take you through, the back way to take you, out of security, for security reasons and get you away from the crowd. I'm like, okay. So we sitting there. Security never comes. So I got to walk down through the hotel with all the fans and, they arguing and, going back and forth and everything. So I'm like, this ain't seeming right. You know what I'm saying? Things ain't working out right like they supposed to. So, after that, I'm sitting in the dressing room. I'm here, get my hands wrapped. So, Mike, how they send somebody from my crew to his dressing room, to somebody from his crew to my dressing room. And I'm getting my hands wrapped. And my coach, Kenny Kroon, who was part of my team, came back and said, man, something ain't right. That's what you mean. He said, Roy in that dress. Roy got his uniform and his trunks, his robe on. He's shadow boxing, he's sweating. He's like, something ain't right. And I'm like, what you mean? I'm sitting in the room with my street clothes on. So, okay, that's the second thing that ain't seeming right. I'm like, what the hell is going on? And so somebody walked to my dressing room, HBO walked to my dressing room and say, you got 5 minutes to get in the ring. And I said, what? And I'm like, what are you, I'm the champion of the world. These people changed the time of the fight and didn't tell me. So it's so much confusion. I mean, if I had a dressing room where I could just close the door and lock everybody out, that would have been a major thing. But it was like a tent set up with just, you know how they do the sheets with the sheets and the sectionals and everything.
Where was that? Was that the Mohegan Sun? Was that the Mohegan Sun? What venue?
Nah, not the Mohegan Sun. The other one. There's two of them out there.
Okay.
What's the other one in Connecticut? Foxwood.
Yeah, Foxwood.
It's Foxwood. So we're in Foxwood, in the room, trying to get away from all these. It was just so much confusion. It was arguing, fighting. People were like, what are y'all talking about? Whatever. So I'm looking for where's Panos, where's my manager? How come people not, standing up for me?
So you have to walk into the ring with all that baggage. See, that's insane. That's just insane.
First of all, I didn't warm up for 5 minutes. I didn't warm up 5 minutes for that fight. Mike can tell you, MMA, boxers, whatever, everybody has a set regimen that they do before a fight. You go use the bathroom, you get your hands wrapped, you warm up, you put your clothes on. I mean, everything is pretty much, fighters who've been fighting for 10, 15 years do the same thing for every fight.
Sure, you got a routine.
This is the biggest fight of my career. Right. This is the biggest fight of my career, and I didn't warm up.
I mean, Montel. I mean, and I'm not trying to play devil's advocate, but if you're main eventing, isn't it generally the same time every? How much time difference do they make?
You tell me. First of all, the fight was on pay-per-view. So on pay-per-view, it ain't no scheduled time. The fight is supposed to go on when both fighters are ready. I think the fight before my fight ended up in a knockout. Which what they do is, if they have time on hand, what do they do, Mike? They show tapes.
They show an undercard fight. Yeah, they show an undercard fight.
Thank you. They do something. That's what I'm saying. HBO came and took tape of me in my training camp and everything, and never showed none of that. Never showed the fighters' history, the fighters' meetings, and all this. It was like I said. I was set up to fail. And like right now, I really could care less because I don't care about throwing nobody in a bus or whatever. But Chris Bird had the same lawyer as Roy Jones. And he told Chris Bird, hey, it's a shame what they did to Montel.
Montel, we were at the point where you were in the locker room. Your guy had come back and said, there's something wrong. Roy Jones is all dressed. You're in the locker room about to head into the ring. Go ahead.
There's so much confusion going on. I'm a fighter. I'm 27 years old. I looked at their, like I said, my manager and promoter. I'm what's going on? I looked at their torch. There was so much going on. Like I said, I'm a fighter. I'm the fighter. I just said, what the hell? Come on, let's go. He said, you sure you ready? I said, come on, man, let's go. And I'm walking out. It was just so much confusion. It was like a crazy time in my life that I was going through. we get the saying, if you knew then what you know now, you'd do things so much differently. And I should have never walked out for that fight. I'm walking out the biggest fight of my life, and I'm standing in the ring, and I'm thinking, well, let me just move around for a couple rounds so I can get
dry. Yeah, you're in there dry.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm dry. I'm not warmed up, and I was like, oh my goodness. And like I said, there was so much confusion going on, and I actually, like one thing about me, I pretty much won all my stare downs with James and all the guys I fought. I stared them down, and I made them blink or I made them turn away. And I'm looking at Roy on the other side of the ring, and I just started laughing. I said, I can't believe this shit. Like, I'm not even ready for this fight. Biggest fight of my life. And, if you watch the broadcast of that fight, the HBO announcer said something. They said Roy Jones had never came out this fast in his career. And I'm telling you, go back and listen to that, and I just let you know that it was set up. He knew that I wasn't warmed up. But they always say, Roy Jones is he was a slow starter, he this, that. They said, oh my goodness, Roy Jones is really coming out on fire tonight. He knew I wasn't warmed up. And, it is what it is. He's going to be tired, one of the greatest fighters ever. A couple of things happened at the end of his career that kind of stained his legacy. But, this is what I got to live with for the rest of my life. I lost I know I could take a punch. Roy Jones is not the hardest guy ever hit me. But I got knocked out in one round, and I got to live with this for the rest of my life. And, I know what happened. I was there. I don't have to make no excuses. It's just crazy. That's just part of life. Like they say, life is life is inches. Inch this way, an inch that way. Things be, totally different. And like I said, I got to live with this for the rest of my life.
It chokes you up. It's an amazing story because it's like you said, it just happened. It didn't happen to you once. And it didn't happen to you twice. It happened like a bunch of times, just adversity. And like I said, just to reaffirm, you deserve even more credit as a person, as a man too, just because, hey, a lot of boxers don't wind up on their feet and, doing podcasts. So I'm glad to have you, bro.
All right. Thank you very much. It brought back a lot of memories, a lot of good memories, a lot of bad memories, but it's my life, it's my career, and it is what it is. I'm probably one of those.
Montel, at the end of the day, you left an impression on people, and you made a difference. You stepped out of you stepped out of your comfort zone as a 22-year-old kid. At 22, you still are, and you became a world champion. Man, you got nothing to be ashamed of.
I appreciate that, Mike. Like I said, I always gave my all. I tried to be the best I could be. I never, I never gave blocks of the black eye. I always tried to be, a positive guy.
Montel, I appreciate you doing this, especially because I know you don't know me, and your time is always valuable. So I appreciate that. And I had a terrific time. I learned so much. I really would like to invite you back because Mike tells me that you're also pretty good with the history of boxing. That you've been able to review a lot of tape, and that you've got experience of seeing tape with your father as a kid and stuff. And me and Mike, every once in a while we do some podcasts on old timers and a couple of things like that. And I'd love to have you because you speak great, you know the sport, and you give us an insight that we just can't come up with, without someone like yourself with the experience in the ring, So I really appreciate it.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
So if you think you want to come talk, Muhammad Ali with us one of these days, or we picked out a future theme of guys you would take to a street fight, and so we're not talking about the most technical or the best guys, just maybe the toughest, and get your impressions on stuff like that. We could have some fun, so that way we're not always going over the same old thing, and we're doing something fresh. Montel, what do you think?
Yeah, I'll be willing to do whatever I do.
Cool.
Yeah. My son knows Cuban boxers real well too, like Pelopilio Stevenson. Like he's got a real good grasp of what was happening with Olympic boxers in Cuba.
Let's go ahead and do something in the future there. I want to thank Montel. Montel, we'll be in touch with Mike and stuff in a couple of days, and maybe line something up for a week or whenever's good for you, and we'll change the tone around and get into some old stuff.
Okay, I'll be down.
Okay.
Just let me know.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Montel. Be good, buddy. Take care.
Take it easy.